Hi, and welcome to Printin and Playin. Today we're going to be talking about InterUrban, a train-themed tile-laying game from designer Michael Schacht. Michael Schacht is actually a fairly well-known designer, with probably his most famous design or most popular design probably being Zuleretto, which was based on a very popular card game called Coloretto. And he also has several other games under his belt as well, probably another favorite of mine being Hansa. But we have this train game that he was kind enough to make available to the public. All you have to do is go to his website and download it. Let's go ahead and take a look at how it works. To start a game of InterUrban, a set of start tiles is shuffled, and then two of them are randomly placed onto the board to be flipped over as our central start space. There is a central pile of general track tiles that is shuffled, and then three are laid out for play, and each player gets a stack of their own color of stations, which is shuffled, and then three of those stations is laid out. And then lastly, we're going to need a set of 6 tokens in order to show open track. And you can use any kind of token you want, though I decided to go with these little locomotive beads that I found on eBay for a couple of bucks. So the gameplay itself is pretty simple. Basically, every turn, a player has the option to play 1 to 3 tiles in order to extend tracks farther from the center. In order to do that, they can take one of the 3 tiles from here, or they can place one of their station tiles as one of those 3 tiles. In fact, not only that, they not only have the option to play their own station, if they really want to, they can play one of their opponent's stations. So for example, if green were to go, they could say take tile number 1 and decide to choose to extend it from tile 7. Take the 2 tile, place it there, and since they don't all have to be off the same track, we'll say we'll place the 3rd one here. Once a track is started, one of the tokens is placed at the end of each track to indicate that that track can still be built on farther. After that, any tiles that were taken are replenished. And the game moves on to the next player. Okay, so now let's say it's blue's turn, and this is where we can talk a little bit about the restrictions of the tile laying. So blue gets to play 3 tiles, one of which can be a station. So let's say we take this one and route it off of here. And then let's say they want to put a station there. That is an illegal move, because you can't have a rail that gets blocked off by like a field like that. So if we wanted to place a station there, it would have to be this one, which could go on like that. Now additionally, on the next turn, the blue player wouldn't be able to place another station on the same track until green places one there. There can't be 2 sequentially on the same track. Additionally, you can't place 2 stations right next to each other. There has to be at least one just regular tile between the 2. A few other fairly simple rules is you're not allowed to simply finish the game or finish a track by having it just loop right around to the center tile there. Uh-oh. We'll fix that up. And you can't connect two tracks. So if, say, this one looped that way and this one looped that way, where you're not allowed to link those up. Additionally, you'll see that the stations are numbered. Each line can only have one of each number. The only exception being that when we get to the 4s, a line can have multiple 4s, but there can only be 1 1, 1 2, and 1 3 on each of these lines. So let's take a few turns, build some track, and see what happens. Oops, I just noticed an error. We can't have two stations from the same player on the same two in a row there, so I'm going to have to backtrack here a little bit. Okay, so in this example, both of these lines are done. Based on the rules that we had earlier, you can't place a station next to another station, and you can't connect one line into another. And those are the only ways we'd be able to continue here. So since this can't continue any farther, those two lines are no longer playable, and we remove our tokens from there. And now we get into how lines score when they're no longer playable. Okay, so here's how scoring works, and this is where the game gets a little tricky and is really kind of the heart of the strategy of the game as far as where you want to place your tiles at. Each route has what's called a route value and a commerce value. The value of a route is the total of the number of general tiles added together plus your start tile. So any of these colored station tiles are not included. So for example, our route here would be worth 7 for our start tile plus 2 for our general track tile for a total of 9. This route here, although not completed yet, right now is worth 6, 7 total. Now, one trick that we're throwing in with our route here is that you'll see instead of a number here we have an S and we have a C over here. What the S stands for is that the value of this route is the number of straight tracks. So that is 1, 2. Again, that's not counting your stations. So that S is worth 2 plus 1 plus 1 makes this route worth a total of 4. So that's how you determine your values of a route once they are completed. Now there's the commerce values, and the commerce values are where the stations come in. For each player on a route, you add together and total their stations. So for example, green here has a commerce value of 2 and 4 makes 6, while blue has a commerce value of 3. Now why that's important is the person who wins with the most commerce value gets the value that we added up with our track tiles. So on this route, the green player would get these 9 points. Then as far as going beyond that, the person who is in second place would get half of that rounded up. So the blue player in this case being in second place would end up getting 5 points instead of the 9. On this route, we can see blue has a commerce value of 1 plus 4 is 5, and green has a commerce value of just 2. So blue wins the points on this one and gets the 1, 2, 3, 4 points. Green would get half of that at 2 points. If you're playing with more than 2, the value that you collect from your commerce points continues to go down depending on what place you're in. So if you're in first place, you get the full value of the route. Second place, you get half the value. Third place, you get a fourth of the value. And fourth place, you get an eighth of the value. If you're playing with 5 players and are unlucky enough to be in completely last place, you don't get any points at all. Play continues in this fashion, scoring each route as it's completed until you get to the end of the game. And what triggers the end of the game is either all 6 of these outside routes have had tracks go out and be completed, all of the track tiles have been placed out, a player runs out of stations to play, or there are no legal plays left. You can't place any of the tiles that are out. If any of those happen, the game is over, and the person who has racked up the most points using that scoring system we talked about earlier is the winner of the game. Okay, so InterUrban should be another pretty easy build. Kind of like Micropole, a game I built a while back. This is going to be a tile game, and it's going to be similar materials. This is cardstock that was printed on, and then glued to cardboard. In this case, I used Triscuit boxes. Micropole was actually done using a cereal box. About the only other difference on this is that this is going to be double-sided. This was printed out and glued to the back, as opposed to the front side here. And also, before cutting this one, you can kind of see a little bit here, I hope, some pencil lines here. The background here is so dark, and you have to be able to kind of spot visually where the lines are to line this up along the edges there on the cutter. It's hard to see along the edges where the tiles actually split, so I went ahead and I had to use a pencil mark in order to do that. This should be fairly quick to do, so I'm going to go ahead here and just get these tiles done. Give me just a moment. Okay, so that's pretty much all there is to it. Several piles of tiles now. Just general track tiles. Individual colored tiles are up to 4 players. Blue, purple, red, green, and yellow. And our set of start tiles. The only other thing we need is a set of 6 markers. And holding on with the train theme, over at eBay I picked up just a bunch of little train beads. These are beads are the shape of little locomotives here. As you can see there, which are going to be used as tile markers in the game. Lastly, you need a box, and as with several of my games lately, since this game is fairly small, I'm going to use a VHS case for this one. And then this is just artwork that I downloaded from the Board Game Geek website and made my own wrapper there. So there is going to be our box for InterUrban, and our game is complete.